think it feels really nice to read a book written by another woman that isn't about women in leadership. It's about leadership in general.
One question I wanted to ask you before we wind up was, so those are the great 10 problems that you have picked up. If you were to pick up beyond the book an 11th problem that you think is really critical for leaders to understand, what would that be?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I mean, the thing that everyone feels so stressed about at the moment is AI, but I don't necessarily think that that's the problem. But there is a problem, I think, around sort of feeling replaced or feeling vulnerable. And so maybe it's in that kind of space of feeling not confident.
People are a little bit ashamed of admitting that they are taking help from AI or using AI as a tool to address the problems. And I find that odd, because if it is okay to use social media for better promotion or whatever way social media helps us, why is it shameful or questionable to use AI, and why is that not okay? Because it is helping us to get better at our work as well. So how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think AI has definitely got a role. I think we're right to be concerned about losing the ability to think, but that's not a reason not to use it. We just need to work out how to use it properly.
So wonderful to be talking to you today.
And to you too, I enjoyed your book so much. I'm really glad we've got this opportunity to talk.
Yeah, same here. And it was such a pleasant surprise to see two people at the two ends of the world thinking of exactly the same issue together. That
Definitely.
was heartening.
Yeah, there were so many times I was reading it and I thought, oh, that's the same. Like, not identical. People should definitely read both books, but we've got common themes, and I think it feels really nice to read a book written by another woman that isn't about women in leadership. It's about leadership in general.
Yes, that is true. That is true. And also, I think that is because we both have similar backgrounds in terms of being focused on leadership development and coaching for senior leaders. And I think that is one of the reasons that we are listening to similar problems, questions, doubts, and myths that the leaders are tackling today.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're probably hearing the exact same sorts of things coming out of their mouths again, even though we're halfway across the planet from each other.
That's right. That's right. And in my case, I have been closely associated with the company called Potential Project International.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know if you have heard of
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Love their
Uh,
work.
yeah. And yeah, so we have been very focused on the human aspects of leadership. And so the work has been more around understanding the inner world of the leaders, if I may say so.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think sometimes that really gets neglected because we spend so much time, especially when thinking about senior leaders, about all the problems outside, rather than thinking about the behaviors and the challenges and the stuff that just comes from within their company or within their team.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Katie, I wanted to ask you, and I was very intrigued by the framework that you have created, Solve. I thought that was a great way to structure the book and the concept overall. And I would love to hear more about what inspired that framework and how do you think it would help the leaders to understand things better?
Yeah, so I found that with the leaders that I was working with, they were coming to me not only with the same sorts of problems as one another, but also that I was working through those problems with them in a very similar way, but I was keeping it all inside. And then when I thought about writing a book about the problems, I thought probably one of the most important things with that is to structure it around the sort of framework that I'm typically using to help them to
Mm,
solve their problems. And I'd
mm,
never written it down before. It was literally a system that I was using in my head. And so when I
mm,
started writing the book, it was a case of thinking hard about what I was actually doing with leaders, and in particular, how it differed from what other problem solving models recommend. So just to go through them really quickly for people who've not read the book, we've got state the problem, which is where you summarize your problem very briefly, 1 to 2 sentences, what you're observing, no conclusions in terms of a solution at that point, no causes, just what you're observing. Then two, you go on to O, open the box. And that stage is about really unpacking the problem and trying to work out what the causes are, whether that's through conversations, interviews, data, reading stuff, any of those things. Then L, lay out your solution where you start to put all the pieces together and work out what you want to do to try and move forward. V is the fourth stage, that's venture forth. I've got an exclamation mark with that because I wanted that sense of forward momentum. And this is
Mm.
where people put their plan actually into action, but keeping an eye out for bumps in the road, obstacles, anything like that that they might need to steer around or to pivot. And then finally, E, elevate your learning, which is where the leaders look at the skills and the knowledge that they've gained as a part of solving that problem and think about how they can apply that elsewhere. So
Mm.
it might be that you've been working really hard on improving the engagement in your team. And in doing that, you've become really good at talking to people about their values. And so you might then go and share that skill set with other teams and go and have those conversations with other people so that others benefit from them.
Mm.
And just very quickly, it differs from other problem solving models because of the emphasis on research for leaders. You've got to really get stuck in that problem. And then also
Mm.
recognizing that once you've spent all that time learning a new skill or new knowledge, you don't want to let it slip. So you want to really think about that elevate your learning stage.
Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
very interesting because when I was detailing out each myth that I wanted to address in the book, um, one of my key thoughts in the background was that uh, leaders are always short on time and always overwhelmed with everything that they need to address. And so I wanted to keep the book as easy to consume as possible. And I wanted them to fundamentally to go into a reflective space and think more about how is it that they are leading today, connect more with their inner selves, and see their unconscious patterns, the triggers that they have, and understand how their brain works
Yeah.
when they are facing certain situations. And I also wanted to share the examples of well known leaders, because eventually everybody is a human being and we all deal with the same set of subconscious and unconscious level triggers and patterns all the time. And dealing with that and expanding your consciousness was my core thought when I was designing this book and putting it together.
And it's great. I was so taken by how many amazing examples you've got in it. I just thought about the vast amount of research that you must have had to do to match those brilliant case studies you've got of all the different leaders to the different chapters. Was that a lot of work?
Yes, that was the big chunk of work that I did after I had the myths and the solutions in place. But I have to admit, ChatGPT helped
Oh, that's good.
aligning the examples with my chapters and the subject that I was tackling. So that was very helpful as well.
That's really good. And I mean, you can't tell that the writing's really good. It definitely, none of it feels AI, or even the structure, none of it feels AI. But what I really liked was just the range of examples and how you've got these names that we hear about all the time. And
Mm,
then they are there on the page and you go, oh yeah, that thing that I knew about that, the leader of Netflix did. I hadn't made the
yeah.
connection of why this fits with this. And I know so many people learn so well from cases. It was amazing to see those. Um, I had a question for you around the 30 myths that you chose. So is the majority of your work within India?
No, as a part of the potential project team, I was a senior facilitator on the team for all global clients. So I
Fine.
got the opportunity to work with Accenture, Unilever, Cisco, Microsoft, and so on in multiple different countries and
Yeah.
at multiple different leadership levels. So a lot of these examples come from my global work as well.
Yeah, because it feels like they're very universal truths. There are things in there where I think I can really see how that would resonate. But then some, I guess, get dialed up more in particular cultures and others. So,
Yes.
for example, one of the ones around leaders avoiding conflict to maintain harmony, I'm guessing in some
Mm.
country cultures that's much more true than in others.
Yes. Yeah, that is very true. We did a lot of work in this space with organizations like Unilever, for example, and Unilever is there more or less all over the world.
Nice.
So we got the opportunity to work with different countries, different cultures, but at the core of it, we often found when it came to conflict resolution or even addressal of conflicts, the fundamental problem was that everybody was so nice. There was a culture of always being nice. So literally everyone at the leadership level was avoiding getting into conflict conversations. Even feedback conversations were questionable because nobody wanted to address the conflict
Yeah.
levels that it would bring up. So yeah,
Yeah.
you've got a valid point there.
Yeah,
Yes.
amazing. No, that's really interesting. And then with your chapters, and they each end with the five key takeaways, which I think is so useful because you've got busy leaders who are trying to read the book and juggle a million
Mm.
things. And one of the things that people have definitely said about my book is it's nice that you can dip into the particular chapters and that you've then got those takeaways. Did you find it hard to write those key takeaways, like, because you've got so much wisdom in some of the longer chapters, to pick out the five things must have been really tough?
No, actually, I was reverse engineering the chapters. I
Okay.
was looking at what the leaders need to know about that subject and then working backwards to get the details in order. And then looking for examples and case studies that would help them absorb the concept in a better way. And I didn't want to get too preachy or give too many instructions about do this and don't do that because, we're talking to senior leaders who understand. It is just that you need to pull that information out. It is buried under the million things that the leaders are addressing today, but this is all the stuff that they already know, actually. So I wanted to give clarity in terms of implementation. So this is an understanding of, let's say, trust or empathy or compassion. But what is it that you can do as an action once you get back is based on those five takeaways.
Nice, nice. Yeah, that's good. I know it was definitely a conversation with my publisher around the sort of the needing the takeaways to give that sense of you've got to have that thing that people can just take if they've only got 2 minutes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I had a question for you, Katie, on the personal effectiveness that you mentioned in your book. And I wanted to understand that, and this is something that I encounter a lot when I'm working with leaders. They talk about how they are overwhelmed, always short on time, experiencing anxiety and burnout because they are not able to deal with everything that is on their plate. And one of the key issues that they face as a result of all of this is the distraction levels. The distractions, not just external in terms of the sheer magnitude of what they deal with, but also the internal distractions in terms of needing a dopamine kick, feeling lonely, feeling hungry, wanting to get up and break their flow in terms of the deep work that they are doing. So the fallout was that they found it hard to stay focused on the work. And also, from my research perspective, it says that firstly, 47% of the time, the leaders are not able to stay focused, even if they are trying to do deep work because of the level of distraction that we have around us today. But even more disturbing is the statistic that for 23 minutes and 15 seconds, they are unlikely to be able to go back into that deep state of work once they are distracted. So that's concerning. And I would love to understand your perspective on this. How can leaders become more focused?
Yeah, I mean, for me, the big thing is remove as many of those distractions as possible. So you've both got to retrain your brain so that it doesn't want those constant dopamine hits from scrolling on one thing and then something else and blah 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 blah. So you've got to become less reliant on those chemicals, and the only way you can do that is by removing the desire, removing the temptation to engage with all those multiple activities. So
Mm,
even if you work in a company where you're not allowed to turn off your notifications that you've got a new email, there is absolutely nothing to stop you sticking a post-it note or a blue tack over the bit on your screen where it pops up and says that you've got that. And immediately you've removed one major distraction from your day. Another really good thing to do is not have all the apps and everything on your phone. So really make your phone a lot more minimal. And if you really want to go on an app, reinstall it. And I find that that's an incredibly powerful thing. So if you've got, to give an example, I'm going to use Instagram, which some people start using for work and then it crosses over into it's there for absolutely everything. And then they're
Yeah.
scrolling on that during the daytime. It's super distracting. It doesn't take very long to uninstall it and reinstall it. So you can literally just at the weekend put it back on your phone again. And
Mm.
whilst just having that additional barrier between you and the thing removes that kind of gut instinct where you've got the app open before you've even thought about it.
Yeah, yeah, you're so right. Mobile is most definitely, and everything that it brings along with it is most definitely the biggest distraction that we deal with at the workplace. And also the way we work, there is Slack open, there are emails coming in, there is the Teams channel which is pinging you constantly. There are people, of course, who are looking for your attention. There is other work, that other priorities that others have. So between the mobile and the multiple channels that we keep open for communication, it just becomes so hard to focus on what is critical.
Definitely. And I think people now are running more than one inbox because you've got your email inbox.
Mm.
Certainly in the UK, and it's not true for every country, but lots of people are doing work via WhatsApp as well. So you've got your
Yes.
WhatsApp, you've got your LinkedIn inbox if you're active on that. So that's at least three. And then if you work in an organization that's also using something like Slack, there's another one
Mm.
thrown in the mix. So I think
Yeah.
people genuinely, their organizational culture is forcing them to do all that switching.
Yes. Yes. And then the other thing that I see as a common issue that a lot of leaders talk about is that the culture that the organization has demands that they be available and responsive at all times. The line is never drawn, and they are expected to be always on. And they just don't have any family time or me time, which is without constant intrusion from the work related pings that they get.
Yeah,
Right?
so I think there's two halves to an answer to that. I don't know what you think, but I think one half is you need to try and find organizations, managers, etc., who don't expect that 24/7 participation.
Mm.
And if you're
Yeah.
working somewhere where that is an expectation, that brings me on to part two, which is have you actually tried to test those boundaries? Because lots of people think that there is that requirement to be on 24/7, but then they'll look around at other colleagues who are really well boundaried and who do take weekends off and do
Hmm.
establish that gap. And I think sometimes it genuinely does come back down to us as human beings to recognize that we're not that important. Like we genuinely, everyone can do without us for some of the time. And it's okay to need time off. And so if you are working for a company, trying out those boundaries and then sticking to them is really, really important. Then if you find that people don't respect them, maybe that's time for a conversation with your boss, or time, if it really isn't working, to move on to a different employee or different industry. But like, don't sacrifice your mental health for that thing. The other thing I would just add on to that, because when I read this, I went, that's so important. So apparently there's two types of us. We've got splitters and we've got blenders. And the splitters are the people who literally want work to finish and leisure
Hmm.
time to start. The blenders
Hmm.
are people who are much more comfortable with working in the morning, going for a long walk at lunchtime, coming back, doing a bit of work, going to the gym, doing a bit of work in the evening. And that for them makes them much happier. And I think where companies try and force either everyone to be a splitter or everyone to be a blender, that's a problem, because
Hmm.
splitters need that downtime, blenders don't. Yeah, so recognizing where you sit on that, and companies recognizing that they need both types of people.
Yes, yes, absolutely. So, while a large part of this problem is on the individuals, the leaders who behave a certain way or have certain preferences, but also equally important is the fact that eventually it ends up becoming a culture in the organization. And when we talk about culture, it is intangible, but very in an unsaid way, in a very clear but unsaid way. It is expected that people behave a certain way, and then it becomes important to understand how can leaders translate the right values into daily observable behaviors, so that the culture that they are building is conscious and it is clearly putting people in a place where they can find their balance and calm and clarity.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's exactly like that word, their balance and calm and clarity, not the thing that works for somebody else.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
When you were writing your book and you'd got your 30 myths, how easy was it to arrive at the 30?
That's a very good question, because when I started to write the book, it was 100 myths, not 30.
Wow. Okay.
And then, when I started work around that, I listed down my 100, and then two things happened. One was that I felt it was overwhelming, and expecting somebody to really grasp all 100 of them was too much of an expectation. And the other thing was, I started to find overlaps. For example, when I'm talking about empathy and what does empathy mean in the workspace, and then I'm talking about compassion, which is actually not empathy, but the words are used interchangeably, I'm realizing that there are overlaps between the understanding of the concept. So then I started to merge them together and came down to 50, and then even 50 felt too much, and then that's how the 30 came together. And my intent in sharing these myths honestly was that most of these things that I covered as myths in the book is not, or are not, something that the leaders can talk to their peers or their own leaders about, because it is perceived as a weakness to express the emotional concerns that they have, or at least that's how the leaders tend to perceive it. So I found in my conversations with the leaders that while they were willing to take me aside and whisper in hushed tones about these challenges that they had, when they were sitting with their peers or their own leaders in the room, they did not want to discuss or talk about these
Yeah.
issues.
Yeah.
So that's what inspired me to focus on these specific points.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. And I think that whole sense about being a leader and it feeling really lonely and having no one to talk to about these things, that your book provides such a useful resource for them in that sense, because it's giving you, again, like a handbook, a tool that you can go to almost look at those things that sit very darkly and deeply within them. So you talked about conflict, as we've already said in the book, and that's something it's so hard to discuss with your colleagues, because also I think often people don't know how they feel about it with some of those topics. So you don't realize you're avoiding conflict, or or
Yes.
that you're in a culture where where all the I really liked the chapter that you wrote as well about leaders struggling to let go of control. You don't realize you're in a culture where no one gives empowerment to anyone on their team. And so who do you
Yes.
talk to about that thing that you're starting to get concerned about, but everyone's doing it?
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's really helpful to understand, Katie, because that's another perspective on what I have done. And I actually feel that when I was writing the book, I wasn't giving solutions. Whereas what is great about your book is that you are translating the problems into effective potential solutions, and also giving them a framework about how they can start to solve those problems. So these books are well aligned in that sense. So we should ask our readers to actually read them in sequence.
Exactly.
Perhaps
Yeah.
that would help.
Yeah.
One question I wanted to ask you before we wind up was, so those are the great 10 problems that you have picked up. If you were to pick up beyond the book an 11th problem that you think is really critical for leaders to understand, what would that be?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I mean, the thing that everyone feels so stressed about at the moment is AI, but I don't necessarily think that that's the problem. But there is a problem, I think, around sort of feeling replaced or feeling vulnerable. And so maybe it's in that kind of space of feeling not confident in
Yeah.
your role. It's a bit of imposter syndrome. It's a bit of not feeling like you've got permission to be there. You know, you're in competition with your peers. I'm not sure what
Yeah.
that chapter would be called, but I think there's something around that kind of discomfort
Yeah.
that would be worthy of a chapter.
I love that, Katie. Absolutely. With AI on the anvil, that is one of the biggest concerns that leaders have. And you're right, they do feel so vulnerable. I remember in my last organization, one of my KRAs included looking at the competition and market intelligence. And some of my colleagues asked a few questions about pricing and so on. And it took me 2 seconds to use AI and get pricing information on most of the competition that we had. Absolutely clear information on how we should implement and the strategy behind it. And everybody was amazed at the speed with which I was coming up with this considered confidential information.
Yeah,
Yes, but what I find very interesting in the leadership space today, especially talking about AI, is one, there is a sense of uh, detachment, shall we say. There is this sense that it's not wise to use AI. This is not your thinking, this is AI thinking for you. So, are you going to end up losing your ability to think critically because you're using AI for all the answers? And the other one on the other side is that people are a little bit ashamed of admitting that they are taking help from AI or using AI as a tool to address the problems. And I find that odd because if it is okay to use social media for better promotion or whatever way social media helps us, why is it shameful or questionable to use AI? And why is that not okay? Because it is helping us to get better at our work as well.
yeah.
So, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think AI has definitely got a role. I think we're right to be concerned about losing the ability to think, but that's not a reason not to use it. We just need to work out how to use it properly.
Yeah.
I think it's a real shame when you see people who have used it to do their writing for them. So, and not having edited it. So much stuff on LinkedIn where it's so obvious that you're not reading something written by a real human being. And I think there's
Mm.
some real giveaways, the whole kind of contrasting pairs. So it's not great. But it's not terrible. I don't know. AI does a lot of that. And so the moment I start to see that, I think that's written by AI. But then what that is also doing, I've realized, is it's taking those expressions away from us as human beings. Like they're powerful, but because AI is misusing them in the way it's writing, it means we now can't use them. Um,
That's true.
yeah. So I mean, I there is just not one straightforward answer to any of it, is it? What I hope is that we'll learn to use it as a proper thinking partner, um, and it will give us the space to be better at what we do, as you said. But who knows?
Yes.
Yeah,
Great. And then I would love to ask you from one author to the other, what has the experience been like? How do the readers react? How was the marketing and the promotion piece for your book? And what are you missing in the entire ecosystem that you think will really help to do a better job of getting
yeah.
your book to the others?
Yeah, so I've been really happy with how it's gone. It launched late August. Sales have been really good. Um, been fortunate enough to get a piece in Harvard Business Review about the book. I've had some review, so all these sorts of things where I really was hopeful that they would happen have happened, which is amazing. Had a big book launch at King's Business School last week, which was fabulous. Saw so many friends and colleagues, and that was great. Obviously, a shame that it was everyone based in London, so kind of wider global network, it wasn't possible to reach out to them. Um, in terms of other things that I now want, I mean, I don't know. I've had to go back to the drawing board on that because I feel like I've ticked all these boxes of all these things. Um, but one really helpful bit of advice I was given by a friend who works in publishing is at the end of your marketing cycle, go to the marketers in the publishing companies and ask them if you had time to do three more things, what would you do? And then do
Mm,
those three things. So I've got a UK publisher and a US publisher, so I've now got a list of six things to do,
good.
which is really helpful. So it gives me a starting point about how to go on the journey myself now. How about you?
Similar experience. The book is doing well. The feedback is great. People are enjoying that there are a lot of examples. They are enjoying that it makes them reflect and think about their own leadership styles. And I'm happy that this is how it is being perceived. The marketing journey has been great. I I think what I've enjoyed the most is how many wonderful authors and thinkers I've had the opportunity to interact with. That's been wonderful, and I'm still talking to more, so that's great. And in terms of what I missed or what I think would have been wonderful, I feel, especially for, and I was talking to the book nerds team just before we got started today, of the fact that when we talk about leadership and business books, the expectation is more to be able to get an inroad into the corporates and talk to the leaders in there. And the way the book marketing industry is structured today, there isn't too much opportunity for doing that. And I would love for the marketing setups to allow us, or for a platform to exist where it is possible to interact more closely with the leaders in the organization, so that our message reaches far and wide. So
Yeah,
that's been
definitely.
my
I think you're so right. And I think I would, yeah, happily welcome lots more of those opportunities too. But it feels as though I will need to drive those myself, which I'm okay with. You know, that's what the rest of the year and next year is all about anyway. But yeah, it would be nice. I agree with you to do more of that.
wonderful. Thank you so much, Katie. It was so
Thank you.
nice to exchange thoughts with you and
Yeah,
get your perspective. I love the
totally
conversation.
agree. It's been great to talk to you. I'm so glad we've had this set up for a while. And as soon as I started reading your book, I was really looking forward to the conversation.
Yes, same here. I loved your book as well. Thank you. Thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.